Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is another video I wanted to show you guys about a really awesome tool that a friend of mine's at work put me onto. Something called Cerego. Now, if you're not familiar with it, it's a I forgot the name of the technology that it uses, but it's essentially it takes memory association and note taking to another level as far as being able to test and reinforce certain information that you learn. And it has a very interesting way and a very interesting approach of how to do this. So it used something called the level approach, which hopefully it breaks it down perfect. So what it does is, it's a after you create the information or you create the flashcards or whatever the questions that you want to go in and do, it has this approach that, as it goes, it'll tell you based off of the level and your mastery of the information, how much that you need to review it before you get to the focus of mastery. I've seen a huge impact that it made on myself from the time of me using it and creating the information that I have created. Um, it's can be a little bit tedious as far as the initial creation of your questions, but you'll see that you'll actually see the benefit. I wish I would log in to show you my Google Drive, but I mean I have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of notes that I've taken over the years of certain topics that I've come across or certain things that I've been studying, whether it be just for a project, whether it be for work, whether it be for a certification. Um, and to sit back and go back through that stuff, if I have a PDF or a Word document with 15 pages of notes on OSPF, to go back and read through that every page, it becomes a little discouraging. So with Surigao, what it does is it allows you to break this information up, and it pretty much turns it into a game, sort of. And so it has these five levels. Level one is that you'll have the mastery of the item for days. Two is that you'll have the mastery for weeks. Three, you'll have the mastery for months. And then four, you'll have the mastery for a year. And then once you get to mastery, obviously it'll say that you, based off of the way that it went through of presenting the information to you, that you should not be able to ever forget this information. So it's really, 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 really interesting and really cool. There's a term for it, and I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head, but a buddy of mine's put me onto it. So I just want to show you an example of how it works and some of the cool things that you can do with it. The two things that I have right now, I have a few different topics created, but two of the ones that I put on there is ISIS and Ethernet. And the ISIS was the one created more recently. Ethernet, I created this back when I first got it just so I can get the hang of creating questions, so it's not as fine-tuned as like my ISIS site. So what you do is you click learn. After you go create your free account, you go and get that. It'll go and actually, let me take it back to the point of creation. So on the top here, you'll have Cerego learn and create. So what you would go to is create, and it will take you down to your content. So what's cool is that you can go and create your own set of questions, or you can borrow somebody else's or have somebody else create one and then share it out to you. My recommendation though is, because this is more focused on your learning style and the way you absorb the information, I would suggest you creating your own set rather than you taking somebody else's, because my set of notes on a particular topic may not be useful for how you learn your information. So um, I have a really smart guy that I work with that, I read through his set and they're really great, but the information that he gathered doesn't necessarily correlate to how my learning style is. So I found it a lot more useful and more effective for me to create my own set of questions. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and go into my ISIS set. So you go into the set, you give it a name, brief description, and then you have these different question types. So you have associations, which is like your typical flashcard type of deal. Vocabulary, you can set up vocabulary sentences or however association that you want to do. You click this and it'll show you an example. So you can say Bel what the meaning is, and then using that word in the sentence. Uh, then you have passages. Passages is probably one of my most favorite, especially when I'm dealing with the Cisco stuff that I'm learning. There's a lot of documentation. There's a lot of really great information that is very hard to create questions out of it. So what I like to do is I copy and paste a lot of the stuff. And what you can do is you can do something called clauses and highlight certain words. So when this is presented to you, it takes out pieces of the words. And so you're forced to either type in that keyword that you signified, or it'll give you multiple choice options in order for you to get the correct, get the question correct. You have regions. Regions is really awesome, especially when you have packet captures or you have uh, screenshots or anything like that. What you can do is you can select different sections of the screenshot, and based off of that, you can put whatever that piece of the screenshot represents, and then it can actually come up as a question like, "What does this mean?" or "Can you identify what this is and where this is located?" So I use that a lot as well. It's really really cool. Then you have sequences. Sequences is pretty cool, especially when you're getting into stuff like, for my case, like BGP next hop processing, or the OSPF BDR DR election process. What this does is it allows you to put each step of the sequence, and what it'll do is it present it to you either what sequence is missing, or it'll tell you to rearrange the sequence in the correct order. So that's really really awesome. Patterns, I haven't really dealt too much with that one. Um, yeah, I haven't really dealt with too much with that one. I guess this is really would come into play if you're doing some scientific work like here. It's showing the example for poison oak, and then you have the three different types of leaves, and you're supposed to know which one that is. For my particular use, I don't really see a use for it for my case, but I mean, it definitely has a benefit for somebody. And then you also have, and where's the applications? Oh, there, application questions, which is like your typical. It's your typical question answer scenario. You'll give yourself multiple choice questions, or you can have multiple answers within a single question. And then you have your instructional item, which I'm not sure exactly what this is. I haven't done much on this. I think this is more if you want to create a presentation, and you can go ahead and throw the presentation up. Yeah, so this is kind of like something that you would use if you're kind of creating a small class or something like that. You can do that with that particular option. So this is what the content looks like, and you can see I have a couple of things already created there. So if I go back to content and I go to learn, now what you do is after you create it, you add it to your schedule, and based off of that, Cerego keeps track of your progress that you're making within each topic that you added. So my two topics that I'd like to see myself get stronger in. Obviously, it's going to be ISIS, which is something that I just recently started getting deeper into, and then Ethernet, which, as simple as that sounds, Ethernet, there's a lot of things that you probably don't realize that you should know, especially when you're dealing with something like this on that CCIE level. Like, for instance, what's the difference between a UL bit and an IG bit and an Ethernet header? Or, what type of messages does VTP send whenever it wants to advertise any new VLANs that have been added to the database? This is all stuff that you probably don't commit to memory because you don't use it a lot. You don't come into it a lot. I always have the phrase, whenever you go set up layer two, you don't ever revisit layer two unless you have to. Layer two is not something that you spend a lot of your time in, especially at my level of the network where I'm dealing in the IP core or dealing with a lot of the functionality of BGP, OSPF, EIGRP, and so on. So, it's good to keep yourself sharp on that topic, especially when you're studying for stuff like the CCIE routing and switching or any other high level certification. Oh, so let's go ahead and do an example. So ISIS, I'll just go to learn. And what it also does is, I mean, it keeps track of everything. And there's also a mobile application that you can actually download. And it'll send you a notification to let you know, hey, it's time for you to go over a set of questions, whatever the next interval is. So right now on ISIS, I have a 3 hour countdown into my next set of questions that I actually need to revisit. And it'll tell you where, what level each question. So I have 20 questions that are in level one. I have two questions that are sitting at level two, and then I have 10 that are still building, and I have one that's new. And what's cool is that you can keep adding as you go. So right now, I have 33 questions that I studied with 34 total, which means that within the last couple minutes here, I actually added a brand new question for Cerego to go over. Just to make this quick, you can select how many questions you want to go. I'll go by 5, and we'll go to learn. So what'll happen is it'll go through and it'll tell you, okay, show CLNS interface, list the CLNS specific information about each interface, right? So it goes, routing within an area is referred to as level 1 routing. Routing between level 1 area, well, I know this because this is a passage that I got straight out of the Cisco documentation. So you would just go and say, I know it or don't know it. If I know it, I will go ahead and in this case, it's giving me multiple choice. So it actually give you distractors, what they call it, as the wrong answers that you would probably think that the issue that the question is. So in this case, it's level 1. So it'll tell you that it got it right, and it'll keep a progress bar, and you would go next. And it'll ask you, do you know what's missing? And routing within an area is referred to as level 1 routing. Routing between level 1 areas is referred to as blank routing. Um, if I would do this, I would say I know it. Now it gives me the option to type it in. So I would go ahead and type in, oh, that's going to be 2, level 2 routing. So what's really cool is that the way it reinforces it, it may be presenting you the same questions as certain portions of your study, but it gives you different variations of what the answer is. So it's not like if you were doing flashcards that were manually made, after a while you'll commit that to memory and you don't really learn the information. It's more memorizing the information. And when it comes time to apply it, your thorough understanding of it is not as deep as you thought it was because you just committed it the answer, not the actual understanding of whatever the topic is. Now this is another one. Level 2 LSPs are generated by ISs that support level 2. Level 2 ISPs are flooded throughout the level 2 subdomain. The set of level 2 LSPs generated by all level 2 ISs in the subdomain is level 2 LSP database. All level 2 ISs will have blank level 2 LSPs before, and therefore will have identical connectivity for the level 2 subdomain. So what you're seeing here is exactly right out of the Cisco documentation, and this is the one I like the paraphrases, is that I can copy and paste an entire paragraph, and I can pick keywords that'll trigger me to remember, okay, this is what this has to do with. So in this case, because I know that level 2 ISs will need to have the same link state database, I know that the answer is going to be identical. And so I would go ahead and select that. And then same thing here. The set of level 2 LSPs generated by all level 2 ISs and the blank is the level 2. So this is actually going to be domain, I believe. Because when you're dealing with level 2 adjacency, you're talking about inter area or domain routing. With level 1, you're talking about intra area or single area routing. So I mean, this is where I'm saying the benefit of this application comes in because it really forces you to actually know the information. So remember the very first question that it asked me, it told me what the answer was and also the description of the answer. Now it's asking me list the CLNS specific information about each interface. And I'm like, okay, I think I know what this is. Obviously, this is the show CLNS interface, and that gives me that details. You'll notice that it'll give you multiple choice answers. When I created this, I only created one. It'll go through and automatically select distractors based off of other questions that I have in the database. But say that if I wanted to trip myself up and I put show CLNS port or something like that, I can throw that as an additional distractor. So, I can look at it and say, okay, I know it's either show CLNS, was it port or interface? And that helps enforce your understanding of whatever the topic that you're coming over. And now it's giving you another variation, so CLNS interface. So what does that mean? So it'll tell you the different options that you have. And these are all right answers for other questions that I have, but I know this one means to list the CLNS specific information. And so it completes that, and now I studied 34, I have a total of 34 questions, and it'll tell me what my progress is now. So my next set of questions that I need to study is in 5 hours and 6 minutes. So uh, I love this application. It can be applied for everything. My buddy who actually showed this to me, he has I think about 10 or 15 different sets. And I mean, mines are focusing on networking, but he's gotten languages, he's gotten history topics. You can actually go and get sets from other people. He's into anime and stuff like that, so he likes the history of it. So not only does he like the titles and the movies, he actually likes to know who the creators are and the different projects that they worked on. So you can create sets to keep that in memory, or capitals. So I think this is something, especially if you have children, this would be really awesome to use. Instead of giving them the traditional homework that normal, like at least where I come from on the American side, you can take whatever you want them to learn, and this could turn into a game. And it could just be something that they could work at and consistently retain the information that is presented to them. And most kids nowadays have cell phones, iPads. I know my son, he's 2, and I gave him me and my wife gave him his own tablet. So instead of watching videos all day, once he gets to the age of being able to read and comprehend and see, he can actually play some of this stuff and get some of the basic numbers and count to 20, or little things like that, where this could actually become useful. So just wanted to show you guys what I use, my main tool I use for studying, and how you can possibly apply it for whatever you do. But if you have any questions, leave any comments, let me know, and I'll be happy to answer.